Hello, I'm Hernan and welcome to the 3D Color Factory Lesson 1 on multicolor printing using a single filament printer. For these lessons, we'll be using the Ender 3 from Creality, which is extremely popular, but the techniques we'll be learning here can easily be used with any other single filament printer. The basis of the technique we'll be using for multicolor printing is support blockers in Cura. Here are some of the prints I have done in an Ender 3 using this technique. As you can see, in some of them, there are multiple colors at the same height, which are not possible to do using the Post at Height feature in Cura. This phone stand with a soccer logo is more complex, requiring some special design work in Corel and extra work in Fusion 360 to create multiple models. This is the sequence of that print where you can see I'm printing next to previous prints and on top and around other prints. All this without crashing with the previous prints. For these pencil holders, I'm printing a design directly onto previously printed pencil holders. Don't worry if you don't have Corel or Fusion. In the video comments, I will include a link to Thingiverse where you can download the models used for each lesson so you can print them at your convenience. And this is me showing some of my work at the 2019 Comic Palooza in Houston, Texas. In this first lesson, we'll learn what a support blocker is and how we can use it for multicolor printing. In the next lessons, we'll be expanding on its use. So let's start with a simple nameplate of a kid's room with a soccer ball. This is how the print should look like at the end. Looking at the cross section, we see this print has three colors, green, black and white. Is 4 mm tall, where the bottom section or back plate is green and 2 mm thick. The black and white sections are 1 mm tall each one. So let's start by opening Cura and load the model. For layer height, we'll be using 0.2 mm and infill 20%. When we slice the model as a single print, Cura says the estimated print time is about 4 hours. What I want to show you here is the infill pattern on the back plate and under the soccer ball and the text. This pattern will be different using the support blockers method that we'll be using later. Using support blockers, we'll be generating 3 separate G-codes, one for each color. The first thing we need to do is to generate a G-code to print the green section or backplate. To do that, we'll be blocking or erasing the black and white section of the model. This is how it would look from the cross-section point of view. To create the blocker, first select the model, click on Support Blocker, and then click on the model to create the eraser block. Select the eraser from the Object List menu. Select Per Model Settings. From the 4 options, select Modify Settings for Overlaps. From the Mesh type, we will select Cutting Mesh. Open Select Settings from the list of settings that we can modify. Let's select Wall Line Count, Top Layers, Bottom Layers, and Infill Density. Close this menu. Now we can modify these 4 settings to zeros. This means that any part of the nameplate model that intersects with the eraser model will not be printed. Let's slide the model and select Preview to see how it looks. Now we see a hole in the nameplate. This means it is blocking or erasing just like we wanted. Let's make the eraser the correct size and place it where it can block the top part. Let's go back to Prepare so we can work with the eraser. Select the eraser, then select Scale, uncheck Uniform Scaling, and set the values X 200, Y 100, Z 2. Select the Move option. Here select X0, Y0, Z at 2 mm. If we see the model from the side, we see the eraser only covering the soccer ball and the text, just like we saw in the cross section. Let's slice it and see what happens. Now we see that only the back plate will be printed and we don't see the infill under the soccer ball and the text that we saw in the beginning, because those elements are no longer part of what the slicer is looking at when creating the G-code. Let's save this G-code to the SD card and rename it with a 1 green backplate, so we know that it's the first print and the color is green. Let's go back to Cura. Select the eraser, then move and make Z0. If we slice it, now we see that it will print the soccer ball and the text, but the ball will be a single color, and that is not what we want. So let's go back to Prepare and select the eraser from the object list. Right-click and select Multiply Selected Model. Number of copies, 1. Now we have 2 erasers. If you're getting an error message about not being able to place all the objects on the build plate, go to Cura, Preferences, and uncheck Automatically Drop Models to the build plate. Okay, so let's move the new eraser to block the white layer in such a way that only the black portion will be printed. This is how we want it to look from the cross-section. That means that only the portion of the model that is between 2 and 3 millimeters, which is the black portion of the nameplate, will be printed. Select the new eraser, then move to X0, Y0, and C3. When we slice the model in preview, we should see only the circle and the text. Let's save this G-code to the SD card and rename it to Black Soccer Ball. Now we have 2 G-codes, one for the green backplate and one for the black part of the soccer ball. Now let's work on the white section. First, select the eraser that is at 3 millimeters and raise it to 100 millimeters, so it's out of the way and won't affect the print. Then select the bottom eraser and change the height to 3 millimeters and move it back to 0 in the Z-axis. We have to move it back to 0 because when we change any dimension from a model, Cura will change it from the center of the model. Let's run the slicer again. Now we see that only the white layers will be printed. Let's save the G-code and rename it 3 White Soccer Ball. Great, now it's printing time. Load your first filament, in this case green, and print the first G-code. It will take about 3 hours to print. Once it finishes printing, the bed heating will turn off. If the bed cools, we risk the model coming off of the build plate, so we have to be near the printer to raise the bed temperature back on while we change the filament. In the next lesson, we'll learn how to keep the bed hot. So for now, let's be near the printer to keep it hot. To turn the bed on while we do the filament change, we go through the printer menu until we find the bed temperature setting and turn the knob to raise the bed temperature. I use 50, but you should set it to the temperature that works for you. Change the filament to black and print G-code to Black Soccer Ball. Remember to turn on the bed heating when it finishes printing the black section. Change the filament to white and print G-code 3 White Soccer Ball. Once the print is finished, let it cool and remove from the build plate. Congratulations, you have your first print using support blockers. Upon closer inspection, we see that this scratch was caused by the nozzle crashing into the previously printed green section. So let's review why this crash happened. When the nozzle finished printing the black porch line, it has to move to the starting point of the black layer and then print the black layer. To get there, the nozzle traveled in a straight line, crashing with the green backplate. In the next lesson, I will show you how to change this travel path by going up first, then traveling a horizontal line, and then down to the point where the next print should start. At this time, you may think that this print would have been easier using the post-at-height method, and you may be right. But the purpose of this lesson was to introduce you to the concept of using support blockers. In future lessons, we'll be expanding on this technique and we'll be printing taller and more complex models. But for now, I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you for watching and have a great day.